everyone. I am the director and producer of the film.
I'm Brandon Boyce. I am the writer.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming here.
How's it going?
I think it was the make or break of the movie. I don't know if I would have made the film without being able to get Robbie Sheehan. And I was so convinced that he was the right person, and Brandon and I met, and the original draft was in Los Angeles with two American kids. And I said to Brandon, it's got to be this kid. And then we discussed, well, do we have him play American? Because he's very good at accents. And then it was actually Brandon who said, there's actually something really interesting about him being Irish and having come to the country. And then he worked out this whole new story for him. But for me, we had a choice. Either rely on a performer who can go to those depths and make us care about this person who just did something really horrible, or we change the script and hedge it. And we had a lot of talk about that. And we're convinced that if the movie had been done at a studio, that's exactly what they would have done. He would have been caring for his ill mother while he volunteers at the orphanage and takes care of puppies just to make sure you really like him, and then he gets in this terrible situation.
And studies MMA on the side.
Yeah. But we said, no, we really wanted this guy who, look, he's not a horrible person, but he is a bit morally ambivalent. He's not being truthful to the woman he loves. He is stealing from people, even some nice people and families.
But that gives him somewhere to go.
That's
that was
right.
the idea, is that we wanted to give him somewhere to go. This is the story of him learning how to be a better man. And unfortunately, he's under a horrible circumstances and a life and death ticking clock. But that's where I wanted to start, seeing where this guy is, and we're like, well, I'm not sure what I think about him. He does something horrible, and then we see him, completely reject that initial way of living.
Well, at the point I wanted him, I had not yet seen him as Kilgrave, but then, as we were talking about it, then I saw Kilgrave and went, oh, come on. Come on, nobody is better than this guy. And, I'm a giant Doctor Who nerd, and I was just desperate to work with him. I've tried to cast him on several other projects, and I've been blocked from doing so. And, this movie is 100% independent. There's no one to tell me what I can and can't do on this one. I wrote the check for the movie, so that was it. And I said, I want this guy. The tricky part is I had to convince him to do it. So, we set up this Skype call, and, I'm trying to be cool. I want him to believe that I'm like, have confidence in me. I'm a director. I know what I'm doing. And then, 2 minutes into it, I'm fanboying. I'm asking him about the TARDIS, and I'm asking him about, And then I opened up my shirt, and I had a Doctor Who shirt on. And then he corrected me that I actually had the logo for Dr. 11 and not Dr. 10. And so now I had to take my foot out of my mouth. But he forgave me, and he did the picture, and it was the best thing that could have happened at the movie.
I was on the complete opposite end of the spectrum. I'd only seen Broadchurch and Jessica Jones. So I knew him, I knew that, and so I had no doubt that he could play this. What I didn't know was what a charming, hilarious, funny, guy he is, which anybody who watches Doctor Who, can see. But that was really that sense of experimentation that he has and fun that he has when he's working, even when he's doing something completely, diabolical. And his ability just to take that off like a costume the second we call cut, and then it's, is it lunch? That kind of I think that is due to his training and just his incredible talent level.
The hilarious thing is, because I'm such a fan of his and of Robbie's, that we would be shooting the show, and I'm sitting in the director's chair, and I'm watching the monitor, and the scene's over, and I'm just watching. I want to see what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
And then my AD's like,
you got to say cut.
Oh, yeah, cut. It happened more than once.
Living in Los Angeles, and the fact that about 5 times a day somebody asks to take my keys, to park my car at an office or a meeting or a dentist office or a coffee shop. And I did have an incredibly short-lived career as a valet that lasted about 48 hours. So I always had that, I always sort of wanted to pay back the occupation. Um, uh, but really, I've been interested very much lately in the sort of in the idea of the false sense of security we have in things like locks and passwords, and if somebody were able to exploit those things, how that let somebody in your life. And it was sort of a chain reaction. It's you give your keys to somebody, but you're also giving them any other keys and whatever that opens. When you do that, they now get in your car now, and so now they're in your car where you have a registration and you have magazines with their address. And now GPSs have a home button on them. So now they have your keys, your car, and now they're at your house. And now these fancy cars also have a convenient open the garage door button automatically. So now they're in your garage. Nobody ever locks the door between the garage and the house. That I was adamant, because I know. So now they're literally in your house. And that was sort of, just peeling away that. I just saw how quickly somebody who was comfortable and wanted to exploit all that, what that person could do.
Yeah. Well, in a weird way, he's like the evil Bruce Wayne. He's got so much money that there's nothing he can't accommodate himself with. But we were very adamant that even though he was going to have a lot of high tech, we always wanted it to be based on something that was absolutely real. So we never tried to give him tech that doesn't exist. But we figured he had access to everything.
There are a couple things we were maybe slightly ahead of the curve, but now all completely exists. There's some software that they have that can predict that the FBI uses and police use to locate gunshots in a town, and that exists. But our software that you see on the phone looks a lot cooler, and they sort of saw what we did, and they're like, "Oh, that looks cooler than what we did."
It's cut from the picture.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah, actually, that was the question that I asked the other people, what things kind of got left on the cutting room floor that surprised them, but what kind of stuff did you leave on the cutting room floor, and what was the decision-making process for the revenue story?
Well, I'll talk about the things I'm sure we had to have, and were very important to me as a writer. I had, the sort of resolution on a couple of things, especially that come later in the movie, storylines that were also going on that I thought, well, we can never cut these. These are very important.
And then we cut them.
Yeah, and we don't miss them. Because you really, shooting a movie and editing a movie are additional rewrites of the film, and you're refining the story. And a screenplay, some people say it's a blueprint. I think it's an invitation. Would you like to be part of this and see where this goes? And we do that, but you get into it, and on your shooting, you realize, you've got things that you've already said. David has a speech that is probably 4 or 5 pages, and I knew when I wrote it, I said, he's going to be so good that we're not going to need most of these lines. So the scene is overwritten, and I know that. What I don't know is which lines we're going to be able to cut. So he nails the whole thing. So now, and he can handle, that dialogue so well. So I just figured it'd get pared back in post, and cut down things that we didn't need, but not much of it because it was
too compelling. But look, the interesting thing now is that we're actually doing the DVD at the same time we're getting the movie ready. So there's about 8 scenes on the DVD in the additional scenes division that aren't in the film, and they're good scenes. I mean, they weren't cut because they weren't good. It's just, Tom Hanks was once asked, how do you make so many good movies? And Tom had a really interesting answer. He said, the problem with making a good movie is you have to make a good movie 3 times. You have to have a good script, but then you have to shoot a good movie, and then you have to edit a good movie. And any one of those steps, you can screw it up. And so when you get to each next step, you have to be a little bit disrespectful of the previous step. You have to honor it, but you also have to say, okay, we don't want to echo the experience of what happened. We need to have a new experience. And so you have to be open to things that happen on set, and then you have to be open to things in the editing room. And the movie used to go on for another 15 minutes past this ending. And Brandon, who was my partner on this, this isn't like he wrote it, went away, and came back. He sat with me the whole movie. And when we were testing the film, it was so clear the movie was over at the scene where it's over, and we just went, you can't, it's got to stop right there. That's the end. That is the emotional conclusion of this picture. So things like that. And other times, sometimes just pacing, you know, where you're just feeling like, oh, this is great, but I want to get on to the next thing. Well, you know, I think the size of a picture is really about the story you're telling. Where we make mistakes is when we make big pictures just to make a big picture. You know, some movies don't really deserve to be big. You know, sometimes you look at these movies and you say, you spent $200 million on what? You know, this didn't need it. But also, you know, the first movie I ever made was independent. You know, when I made Stargate, that was 100% independently financed. I mean, I went to France and begged guys to write me a check, and we got to make a movie without anyone telling us what to do. And that easily could have gone south. And we're very lucky it didn't, and it's gave me a career. And so now I kind of feel like it's full circle. I'm back to where I started, but it's also bringing back the purity of that. You know, I look very fondly back at Stargate and on Independence Day. But even Independence Day, you know, we spec'd that script outside of the studio system. We just wrote it. And at the time, there was 9 studios. There's only 5 now. There were 9 studios back then, and they all bid on it. And so we were able to make a contract where they couldn't touch us. If they wanted it, they had to. So it was almost like making an independent movie. And I think those are 2 of the best films I've done because I had the freedom to do it right. After that, every film I did at a studio, I had 1,000 cooks in the kitchen every single time. And some worked out better than others, but some did not work out at all. And they're embarrassments to me. So for me, I had to go make this picture. I needed to see, can I make a picture? You know, is it me? Is it this, you know, what's going on? And so I said to everybody in my company, I said, if I don't get on the horse right now, I'll never get on it again. And I loved his script. I had wanted to make a script years earlier, and I should have done it then. And I said, I'm not doing anything again until I get to make this movie. And so we went out, and we just made it.
I really applauded Dean's, you know, at that moment when he, you know, because here's a guy who's made, you know, these hugely budgeted films sometimes, and I was like, this is a little movie. You sure you want to, you know, do this? And he absolutely said yes. And then I saw, you know, what was very clear to me was that this is a filmmaker who can handle any film at any kind of budget. You know, you could have made a $3 million movie, and so that was impressive.
And frankly, we had such a great crew. I mean, literally from the PAs all the way through. This is a crew that's worked with us a lot in Oregon. And I just tell one story because it's indicative of the whole thing. But, you know, you hear a lot of people putting down Teamsters. You know, like, oh, lazy Teamsters. I always say things like that. Well, I want to tell you about our Teamsters. So we were shooting up in this place called Sandy, Oregon. And we were up in these hills. And it was snowing like crazy. So we were all staying in this really terrible little motel because it was the only place to stay. And we're all coming out of our rooms to drive to set. And it had been snowing all night. So everyone's like worried about their cars and stuff. We came out to the parking lot, and the Teamsters had shown up 2 hours before they're paid to be there. And they were cleaning every single person's car to make sure it was safe to drive to the set. I literally, I kid you not, broke down in tears. I was so moved that these people would do that. They weren't being paid to do it. They just cared. They cared about our crew. They cared about each other. And I was like, that's independent movie making. It's that spirit. It's like we're in this thing together. And I think it shows on the screen. Well, what was interesting is that, again, because it's low budget, we only had 5 days to shoot the entire last act of the movie because we were going to lose David Tennant to another project he had to do. So I had 5 days, and everyone was saying, you can't shoot this in 5 days. That's too much stuff to shoot. I said, I don't care. We have to figure it out. So we shot for 2 days, and it was pretty good. And then on the night of the second day, it started snowing. So now I had to reshoot the first 2 days so it would match the other 3 days. So now I had 3 days to shoot 5 days, which wasn't enough to shoot 2 weeks. But again, this amazing spirit. Suddenly, we splintered off, and there was a splinter unit, and he went to the splinter unit, and they were shooting while I was shooting, and I mean, it was just crazy. And then the other thing, just on a technical level, for any of you who are interested in tech, We were shooting, it was only the second movie ever to shoot with 8K cameras. And we didn't shoot it because it was going to be such a big screen. We shot it with these cameras because they were so amazingly light sensitive. I don't know who here has seen them. Have you all seen the film? All right, well, you know this fight scene at the end of the movie? We started shooting that at noon. We finished shooting it an hour and a half after sunset. And it all looks like it's at the same time. And so literally we started at 200 ASA, and by the end I was at 6,000 ASA. And literally, I have the photograph, I don't have it with me, but I have a photograph where you see us all in the dark, and then you see the monitors, and it looks like daytime. And not just like daytime, but you can actually see shadows. I mean, unbelievably light-sensitive cameras. So all those things came to help us. Yes, it was on the helium. Yeah, we were the second film ever to shoot with it. Yeah, Galaxy and us.
Guys, we have time for one more question.
Well, this film is so important to our company because not only as a film, but this is the first time we are self-releasing a movie to the tune of 2,500 screens. So this is like being at the poker table and going all in. So it's such a big deal for my entire company. I can't even think of what's after this. If we succeed, I'll probably go make another picture, probably with this mook. If it fails,
He'll kill me. Put me in the hole that you see in the film.
So I don't know. I don't know. Really, right now, I'm just focused on May the 4th.
I think in my mind, I think he was. I think I had him, being from North Hollywood in the beginning, which ironically, where Carlito lives. But I think I always felt like that was that worked because it was an LA story. Yeah.
And an Italian-sounding boss. Exactly. Yeah. Well, and they're outsiders.